For today's lesson, we're going to look at the developments of truncated prism, the development of a truncated prism, but this time it's going to be in AutoCAD as opposed to in our notebooks as a freehand sketch. So I have here a truncated prism, similar to the one that Miss Dillon had for her lesson on Monday. I made the size really simple. It's 1 by 1 on the bottom. This side length is 2 inches tall, and this side length is 1 inch tall. So it's almost like we had a 2 by 1 by 1 prism, and we cut out half of it. Not half of it, this section up here, not half of it, or a 1 inch by 1 inch by 1 inch right triangle out of it. So let's get started with our orthographic. So like I always like to start with orthographics, I'm going to do construction lines. I'm going to start with a construction line cross, start at 0, 0, and then I can actually do that again, and the height is going to be 2 inches, and the width will be 1. So I'll do 1, 2. I also could have just offset 2 inches vertically and 1 inch horizontally, but this is the setup for my front view. Now I'll draw lines. I have a line there. That should be 2 inches long. Good. Line there. This line up here is going to go up 1 inch, and then I'll just connect across. That's our front view all done. Now let's offset by 1.25 inches. I just want to remind you it's 1.25 inches between views. I noticed a few people making mistakes with their homeworks that they're like offsetting. They're separating things between views 1 inch or 1.2 inches or just randomly. Like, don't lose points here. It's 1.25 inches between views. So select my construction line, offset at 1.25 inches. And then I'll do it again, but this time I'll make it 1 inch because that is my depth for this object. That's the depth of this object here. And I'll draw a rectangle in that space. Then I can create my middle line. Really don't need it here. Let's just do it anyway, just for posterity. Start there and go at 45 degrees. Draw some vertical construction lines. You could have just, offset by distance between views here, and then offset by the depth. It's not really important which way you do it here. Okay, so now I'll draw a construction line horizontally for this corner here, and I can go ahead and draw a rectangle and then a line in the middle for my right side view. I could also just do 2 rectangles or just lines. Either way is fine. So that's it for my orthographic minus my partial auxiliary view. But I want to include that here. And I want to include it as its own entity up in kind of this space here. Because I'm going to utilize it in my development. I'll show you guys in a moment. Let's start by creating it. So I'm going to create some construction lines. First, I need a construction line here. Now, if I try to offset that construction line by 1.25 inches, I'm going to run into a problem where my auxiliary view is going to intersect with my right side view a little bit. So I want to offset it a little bit more. I'm going to go for 2 inches, just so it's in kind of a nice space, and then I'll offset another 1 inch because that's my depth. So my auxiliary view will be in this space. Don't get confused by the miter line because it does cross through, and it crosses through at the angle of our. It's perpendicular to our incline because of the way this thing got cut. It got cut at a 45-degree angle. All right, so let's create some perpendicular construction lines. We'll go perpendicular to here, and we'll cut through these 2 points. So now our auxiliary view we know is going to be formed in this space. So let's draw it in. I just want to make sure we're going to the right spot. We want to be in an intersection here. Okay. Done. So now, Just want to zoom in, make sure these are all in the right spot. I recommend you guys do that too, to make sure these lines are all in a good place. Okay. Now that I'm done with my orthographic and my auxiliary, I can get started on my development. And believe it or not, it's really smooth sailing from here. I have my height laid out for me with these construction lines because I'm just going to put my development kind of in this space. So let me get started with this surface up front, this rectangle, because that's kind of how Miss Dillon had it laid out. Now, for setting up how far away you want to put the development, there is no real set distance. We're just going to keep it consistent at 1.25 inches to be our start. Actually, sorry, I want you to do it at 2 inches, just because it'll help. It'll make it so it's not confusing. What's the development? What's the view? We'll space out a little bit further. All right, let's do this bottom portion. It's just going to be a 1 by 1 rectangle. So start at that corner, 1 by 1 rectangle, or 1 by 1 square, it's also known as. And then, actually, let's go back because we don't want to do this as a rectangle. We want to do this as lines. So let's offset by 1 inch this construction line here. And the reason we're going to want to do it as lines is because some of these lines that we're drawing are going to need to be fold lines. And doing them as individual lines will allow us to manipulate individual lines to make them look like fold lines. Okay. Now you can continue, draw some more stuff in, offset 1 inch, this construction line here, draw a line up. You know, I'm being smart about this. I'm making sure I'm drawing only lines because I know that I'm going to need to edit the line type of some of these. Okay, continuing, I can offset by another inch. And draw this rectangle here, offset by another inch. And these are all really friendly numbers. One option actually you can do, instead of drawing lines, you can actually mirror these lines here and enter across the middle here. You don't really need to do that. I'm just kind of having fun with it. Okay, now we'll do our auxiliary view, which is going to be up here. So this is our auxiliary view, right? The fold that goes, sorry, not the fold, the surface that's going to be here, or we can actually put it over here, is going to be basically our auxiliary view. So what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a command called copy, and I'm going to select all 4 lines of our auxiliary view. Hit enter, it'll prompt me to select the base point, just like the move command or the rotate command, and then I will create a copy right there. So let's recap that. Let's do that again. So copy, hit enter, select all the elements that I want to make a copy of. Enter, select the base point, and then plop it where it belongs. Okay? And there we go. I actually put 2 lines on top of each other here so I can delete one. But that's a really nice way to just kind of not have to draw more construction lines, not have to draw another whole auxiliary view. You just copy it over. Okay, and at the bottom here, offset by 1 inch to do the bottom square, which can of course go anywhere along here. Well, that line came out wrong. Let me redraw it because it snapped to this construction line. So we fix that. zoom in just to make sure I don't repeat my earlier error. Looks good. Okay, that's a finished development. Now the last thing I need to do is add my labels for all of my corners. Let me show you guys how to do that. One thing I did forget to do though is turn some of my lines into fold lines where they need to be fold lines. So let me go through and select all of those lines that need to be folded before I do my labels and change the line type. The line type we're going to use for this is just going to be hidden lines. Fold lines and hidden lines are drawn the same. So line type hidden. Okay. And then we've taken care of our fold lines, which is, of course, where this whole shape would fold together. If you actually printed out this section, you can fold it together and make an actual, truncated prism. Okay, let's now do our labels. I'm not sure if the video caught it because it was acting weird, but I selected these lines and I made them hidden lines because hidden lines and fold lines look the same. This is where this object would fold together. I just wanted to make sure I got that in this video. Sorry if that's a repeat. Okay, for labeling our views, the command we're going to use is called text. You'll find it up here, or you can just type in text. So first thing it's going to do is it's going to say specify start point. So I'll take care of, let me do the front view first. So I'll start with this point here, this corner, and it's going to ask you to set a height. You can type this height in, or you can just click, which is what I'll do, and then we set it's to specify the angle of rotation. We don't want an angle of rotation here, so we're just going to keep it at 0. This will rotate the text. And then we type what we want to have, and when you're done, you just click in another space, and you'll put your labels. And it's okay if your label is kind of a little bit in the wrong spot, because we can move them later really easily. So we're going to label all our corners. I'm going to try to keep my labels consistent with what Miss Dillon had in her lesson. So we just kind of go through and click. It's pretty easy, this. So that's the front view done. And let's keep on going and clicking. So if that was C up here, this is going to be C over here. And this will be D. This is B. And try your best to make this look organized. It's a little bit hard to do. I don't want you to spend kind of all your effort on this because it's not, it's going to get too finicky if you try to get it really perfectly aligned. Your teacher, if you don't have me, might ask you something different, and it might be mad that I'm saying that, but for my kids, that's what I'll ask you guys to do. Move around. Ooh, actually did that. Go to my top view. See. And there's no set size I want you to make these. Just kind of keep the proportion in a way that makes sense. I probably made these a little bit too big, actually. Okay, this is 2. This is B. And you always want to label things in your when you have a development, because it shows how things fold together. If you don't have those labels, it's unclear how things fold together. Okay, so that's it for the ortho. Now let's move over to our development. So this is going to be, zoom in a little bit, A and B. Therefore, 1 and 2 are down here. See? It's 3. Actually, I want to make that a little bit lower. 3. Now, for this bottom section, if this is 2 here, then this part that folds into it is also going to be 2. This is 4. This is 1. Same thing is true over here. If this folds together, this is 1, then this should be 1 as well. I have D and A. Now let's pause at our auxiliary view here, because the auxiliary view, you'll notice the labels are kind of backwards. Well, that's because this is flipping up as opposed to flipping down. So it's you have to kind of fold this thing and see it, but this is kind of the this is a reversed representation. But it is correct because, if you think about it, this is going to be corner D, then this has to be corner D because that's what they interlock. So everything's going to be flipped. D is here, that means C is going to be up top. And B will be over here. All right, that is our finished product. We're done. We'll click somewhere else. We'll hit escape. And what you can do with these is if they're kind of in the wrong place, you can click on them and move them around a little bit to clean them up. And I kind of need that in a few spots for sure to make it just look a lot neater. This is important. You don't want just to have these labels kind of randomly floating around like I originally had them. We want to tidy them up a bit. Just like you would on a freehand sketch. You wouldn't want them just being crazy. You want them to actually be neat and organized. Look like there was a purpose to your decision making for placing them. Okay. Top view looks good. This D is all kind of an awkward spot, so let's clean that up. Mouse is not being very cooperative today. This A is right on top of an object line. We definitely don't want that. 4 is floating a little bit. Okay, go through. Flip everything over. Oh, that's no good. This is going to be a little bit tedious. Shouldn't take you more than a couple minutes to take care of, though. So, luckily, it is tedious, but luckily it's not crazy time consuming. Would have been easier if I was a little bit neater with them when I was going through and doing them. So, learn from my mistake there, guys. Okay, here's our finished product, all our labels and everything. So for homework, you're going to be asked to do a similar thing for block number 9, which you did for homework, a freehand sketch. And so that's it for today. I will see you guys next week.